On Thursday, the 1st of June 2023, His Excellency Ambassador Dennis Francis was elected as President of the United Nations General Assembly. Mr. Dennis, who has had almost a 40-year career as a diplomat representing Trinidad and Tobago all across the world, including in Geneva and Paris, takes up this position as he goes forward with his theme, Peace, Prosperity, Progress and Sustainability. It's certainly something that all Trinbagonians could be proud of and could celebrate in. Congratulations to His Excellency Ambassador Francis, as well as to the Honorable Dr Amery Browne, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. In fact, that is how we start our program this morning, as I welcome Senator the Honorable Dr Amery Browne to join us as we discuss the role of Ambassador Dennis Francis going forward as President of the United Nations General Assembly. Dr. Browne is with us via Zoom this morning. Good morning, Minister. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Ketan. It's very good to be here. Thank you for your focus on this excellent achievement by His Excellency Dennis Francis and Team Trinidad and Tobago, which would have been part of the effort to ensure our campaign's success.
Certainly. Well, this particular election, does it underscore Trinidad and Tobago's role in the international arena, as well as its commitment to promoting peace, prosperity, and human rights as it assumes this position?
Well, you framed it very well. This success really underscores Trinidad and Tobago's strong profile in the international spaces. We've been a member of the United Nations for 60 years now, and we've used that time quite well over the years in ensuring nationals of Trinidad and Tobago have been playing key roles at the UN and at other international fora over the years. As you know, we through E.N.R. Robinson, been founding members of the International Criminal Court. Through Lennox Bala, we've had key roles at the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, Justice Anthony Luckey, Sir Ellis Clark. We've really punched above our weight class over the years. We've had several judges serving at the ICC, ICJ, many other international fora. So Trinidad and Tobago's profile is well known, and with this election to the presidency of the General Assembly for the 70th session, that profile gets much stronger. That brand is elevated even further, and I dare say doors will be further opened in the future with this success for additional nationals of Trinidad and Tobago who wish to serve, who wish to carry their nation's brand and identity across the globe. So it really is good news. Ambassador Francis and the team ran a very strong, thorough, comprehensive campaign. You've given the theme, Peace, Prosperity, and Sustainability. But it was not just about the elaboration of a theme. It involved a lot of hard work and very strategic efforts, supported, of course, by the cabinet, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, but really executed by a multidisciplinary team that knew what it was doing and ultimately achieved the objective.
Mm-hmm. Certainly excellent news, Minister Browne. However, as His Excellency Ambassador Francis assumes his position at the 70th sitting of the General Assembly, it comes at a time where countries across the world are recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, dealing with issues of climate change, the Russian-Ukrainian war, and of course there is the Pact for the Future. Is the next year crucial to strengthening the credibility of the United Nations, as Trinidad and Tobago plays a keen role actually in those systems to deal with such challenges?
Again, you framed it perfectly. The next year is absolutely crucial, both with respect to the United Nations and with respect to a number of challenges that the international community would be facing. We live in very difficult times. The world is more polarized today than it has been for many decades. There are multiple conflicts that are ongoing that must engage the attention of the General Assembly, as well as, of course, the United Nations Security Council. And leadership is critical at these times. We did not offer Ambassador Francis in a light fashion. He was identified as our candidate, specifically because of his experience and his attributes. We believe that he has characteristics that the international community will benefit from at this time. He's an excellent mediator. He's a very keen strategic thinker, strong in communication, and really is able to build consensus in spaces and fora that others would struggle in. So Ambassador Francis, we strongly believe, is the man for the job. Additionally, he comes from us. He was raised and nurtured in an environment where, as you know, we have great diversity, but also great tolerance and harmony, notwithstanding our diverse origins. And some of those traits and characteristics and that incubator would be very useful in treating with this polarized world at this time. So yes, Ambassador Francis has a tough job on his hands. President-elect Francis, he's currently working on building a team that can assist and support the duties of the presidency. We are working with him in that regard, and we've gotten excellent support from some of our partners in the international community. But bear in mind the role of the President of the General Assembly. He not only presides over the general debate on matters of great importance before the international community, but he also sets the theme of the general debate, arranges thematic debates, makes proposals for high-level meetings on specific issues. So really, it's not just about a ceremonial role at all. And a president can help set priorities and must help set priorities for the work of the 78th session. That's very relevant to us. As a small island developing state, that's very relevant to CARICOM. It's very relevant to the OACPS and the G77, the developing world. And really, what is called upon is Ambassador Francis, President-elect Francis, must really be a man for all people and all seasons. We believe he's the right man for that task.
Well, you just mentioned it goes far beyond a ceremonial role. In fact, the Assembly considers current issues as via debates organized by the President of the General Assembly, as well as conducting informal consultations towards the adoption of new resolutions. I mean, it is understood that President-elect Dennis Francis holds no voting powers, but how does Trinidad and Tobago, at the helm of the United Nations General Assembly, navigate proceedings without compromising the state's diplomatic positions and agendas?
Well, certainly with Ambassador Francis being the president-elect, Trinidad and Tobago's representation at the General Assembly will have to be fine-tuned because, yes, we now have a son of our soil in the chair, but we also have to ensure our ongoing consistent representation and participation. I've already given a note of alert to our cabinet and to elements here in the country that during high-level week and throughout the 70th session and even beyond, there would be an expectation of increased participation of key government ministers, such as the Minister of Health, on health-focused areas, etc. And there will be more of a spotlight on Trinidad and Tobago during this period. So it's incumbent on us, one, and we've already started doing it, to strengthen our team at the permanent mission of the United Nations, but two, to also ensure that our participation from headquarters, from Port of Spain, in the work of the UN during this session is as strong as it has been and deepened even further. So all of that is in train at this time, but bear in mind that with our nation in the chair, there's very likely to be an increased desire on the part of influential members of the UN to consult with the government of Trinidad and Tobago on major international issues. We are likely to see more high-level visits to Port of Spain, and the profile and the prestige of this country is certain to be elevated. That puts us in the spotlight, and I believe that is a spotlight that we should relish because we have the characteristics to really fulfill expectations, positive expectations in this regard. Bear in mind that Guyana is also coming into a non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council with the culmination of their campaign for that particular position. We have several other CARICOM member states and members of BRULAC that are well positioned. Cuba is in the chair of the G77. So really in astronomy, we have something called a conjunction where the planets align, or sometimes the planets align with the stars from the perspective of Earth. And I really do see the potential for a very positive conjunction coming out of CARICOM, coming out of the Caribbean and the Caribbean and Latin America. Bear in mind, St. Vincent is also the president of CELAC at this time. So it really should be a very good time, a very productive and fruitful time for CARICOM, for countries like us. And it's really up to us to take best advantage of this opportunity in the interest of our people and the global community.
Well, certainly, Honourable Minister, I can agree that this is something that is not only for Trinidad and Tobago to celebrate in and be proud of. This is certainly an achievement and, by extension, a victory for all small island developing states. Does this election prove that though small island developing states are indeed vulnerable and perhaps their voices are not often heard, does this prove that they are not powerless?
Yes, indeed. And you're right, but it goes beyond just proving that we're not powerless in terms of our success in being elected by acclamation. What we now also have to do is to further prove that we can lead, because though we are small, we have a large profile, and now we have a large role to fulfill. But I always say that we are not just small island developing states, we're also large ocean developing states. And therefore, you have to also not just consider the size of our land mass, but you have to consider the size of our ocean spaces and also the strength of our people. Our education background is very strong compared to many other places in the world. And Ambassador Francis will really be the standard bearer of the best of Trinidad and Tobago. As I said at the beginning, it is my view that his performance will open further doors for Trinidad and Tobago, and also further doors for individuals with a background similar to his, coming from humble origins in Trinidad and Tobago, not being born with a golden spoon in his mouth at all, and really should be a beacon for young men and young women in our country, that if you choose the right path, a path of dedication, of integrity, of decency, you can get very far. You can get right to the top, notwithstanding what might seem to be advantages that others may possess. So stick with it, continue or press ahead on the journey, dedicate yourself fully to the task at hand, and you can get very, very far. Yes, in this same unfair world, it is possible for the best of us, the genuine ones, to rise to the very top. So I think there's so many lessons, there's so many causes for celebration and inspiration. I also want to underscore the fact that this successful candidature is not Trinidad and Tobago's first in the last few years at all. We've been laying down an extremely strong and enviable record of performance with candidates over the years. I prepared a list yesterday. Since 2015, we have every single candidate that we have offered in the international spaces, we've been successful at. And that is very, very unusual. And that speaks to a nation that knows what it's doing, and that's elaborating its foreign policy in a very strategic manner. And one of our major foreign policy objectives during this period was to have a successful run at the presidency. Ketan, just imagine if we had not succeeded, as other countries have failed in the past. This is not an automatic assumption of a presidency, just because you come from the regional grouping that might be due under the rotation system. It's not automatic. And we've seen as recently as 2018, a member state of GRULAC failed because there was a competitive election, notwithstanding going through all the steps. And as recently as 2021, another member state from another regional grouping failed as well in a contested election. So the possibility of success was not a certainty. And if we had failed, we would have been very much exposed negatively. And that is those are the considerations that were weighing upon us that resulted in the selection by the cabinet. They ultimately made the decision of the best possible candidate from our country. We took it very seriously, and to ensure that we mounted a robust and strategic campaign, which was successful in the end.
Certainly, and this is why it was, and it still is my hope that it is highlighted more, given the prestige. It's excellent news for Trinidad and Tobago. Beyond this, though, have plans been discussed as to how now does the President-elect of the United Nations General Assembly, as well as his team, what are the plans to ensure that the 193 member states of the United Nations are in a healthier position to achieving the 17 Sustainable Development Goals as agreed upon in 2015, as well as the Our Common Agenda Agreement of 2022?
Yes, those discussions, in fact, that ethos formed very much the basis of the campaign. What we would want to see is a very productive session, and Ambassador Francis, having had the experiences that he has had, and certainly being in the UN system over the years, and also as a permanent representative in New York for the most recent sessions, would have a very keen sense of the accomplishments, but also the inertia and the swift passage of time during these sessions. It's just a year, and it's without a very dedicated and targeted effort, it would be very easy for a session to go by without meaningful accomplishments. So what I can tell you, Ketan, without going into too much detail, is that a lot of thought has gone into how the session will be structured. And again, I have every confidence and Trinidad and Tobago can have every confidence that our President-elect, His Excellency Dennis Francis, will lead this session in a very productive manner. Those elements are already in place, but we are seized with the knowledge that a large part of it is the elaboration of a strong team of support. It really cannot be a one-man show. And so both from here in Port of Spain and from other capitals, there's work taking place to help ensure that we have the strongest possible team that can help the president of this session deliver on the themes that would arise.
Honorable Minister, my final question to you. Previously, you've mentioned a polarized world. Every day, we are learning of more reports of issues that are associated with humanitarian crisis, social, political, and economic crisis. Geopolitical tensions are on the rise, and the United Nations General Assembly, they have the power to act on acts of aggression, on breaches of peace, even in the instances of a negative vote by permanent members of the Security Council. I know that you've mentioned His Excellency President-elect Dennis Francis, his experience, and how he is certainly the most suitable individual for this position. However, it is a mammoth responsibility, a great task in creating a more United Nations, in bringing together the world which is greatly divided as we speak. Why is now the right time for Trinidad and Tobago to lead from the front, from the helm of the United Nations General Assembly? Are we certain that we are prepared for the road ahead?
Good question. We are very much prepared for this road, and we are preparing even further at this time. Trinidad and Tobago has established a strong identity with respect to our association with multilateralism. That offers a different vision of the world. It offers a vision of a world that's not just struck between two sides or two poles. It speaks to the UN Charter and the importance and relevance of all the member states of the United Nations in arriving at solutions to the challenges that are before us. This is the spirit that we've campaigned with for this presidency, and that is the spirit that will guide, that's the ethos of the 78th session. What I've just described is the bread and butter of Dennis Francis. That's his language, that's his interface, that's his approach. It's very consistent with Trinidad and Tobago's foreign policy, anchored in the UN Charter, anchored in multilateralism, anchored in respect for international law and the sovereignty of member states, and the role that we must all play in achieving solutions. So it may seem like an elusive goal, but we are of the strong view that those attributes, those elements, that approach is exactly what the international community requires at this time and can bring us much closer to our objectives, including the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. It's an approach that must focus on leaving no one behind at this stage of development.
Senator, the Honorable Dr Amery Browne, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, my greatest thanks for you making the time to join us this morning and to share with us as we all celebrate a remarkable achievement indeed. It is a great responsibility, but once more, congratulations to you, to President-elect His Excellency Dennis Francis, and Team Trinidad and Tobago for a successful election campaign.
Thank you very much, Ketan. You and your media team are very much part of Team TNT, and I must say, all your listeners and viewers as well. So let us all be proud, and let us all put our shoulder to the wheel, both at home and in the international forum. God bless you. Have a great day.
Certainly, sir. Thank you very much.